Hi everyone, Alan here. Welcome to Discovering Buddhism. Hope you're well, and I hope you enjoy the next topic, which is called Refuge in the Three Jewels. So it's quite a big topic, as all of them are, and as usual we'll be doing four individual sessions. This is the first. I'll talk about the readings and so on in a minute, but without further ado, I'd better mention that Vajrayana Institute is presenting this series of teachings. Vajrayana Institute, hi Julia, great to see you there. And if you're new either to the live teachings or you're watching later on, and you want to join the group and get the teaching, get the notes, join the list, the mailing list. If you just write your name and your email address where it says "say something" there beside the screen, and say you'd like to receive the materials for the subject, and I'll send them to you by email. No problem at all. So that's introduction. Let's do our normal 5 minutes mindfulness meditation, mindfulness of the breath, to calm ourselves down and to put ourselves in a receptive frame of mind. So get comfortable. Okay, so now let's have a sense of letting the outside world alone and coming into our inner world, our inner body, our thoughts, our mind. We're letting the busy day go. We're going to use the breath as our object to calm the mind. Remember that we're doing the study not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of other beings, to progress, to cultivate our minds, and eventually become liberated beings. Then we can be of maximum benefit to all other beings. That's the ultimate aim of our practice. Now we just come into the breath, making sure our body is relaxed, whether we're sitting, lying down, cross-legged or on a chair, whatever it is that's comfortable. The spine's really reasonably straight and shoulders relaxed. The eyes can be closed or just gently open, gazing ahead. We can use the breath to have a sense of letting go with each out-breath. Imagine we're just breathing out all the tension in the body, all the busyness of the mind, all the distractions, like purifying the body and mind, and letting go. And we can now just pay more attention to the breath. We can choose to just watch the whole movement of the body with the breath. We can narrow it down to the abdomen, rising and falling with each breath. Or we can look a bit more closely at the nostrils, pinpointing that movement just at the tip of the nostrils where the cool air enters the body and the warm air leaves the body. Whatever's the most comfortable point to watch the breath. We're not moving it, we're not changing the breath. We're just watching what's already happening without judging, just like a bystander. Part of the mind is also just checking and monitoring, are we still with the breath or have we wandered off? The mind will usually wander off after a while, and we notice that when that happens. We gently let go of that distracting thought, sound, whatever it is. Just a thought, just a sound. And very patiently return to the breath again and again. Staying with the breath, just one breath at a time. The full flow of the in-breath, the full flow of the out-breath. Okay, just relax and come back into the normal world. So hopefully you've received the readings I sent out yesterday. There was the course outline, and there was the notes for tonight. Then there was a set of readings, the normal readings, which are mostly by the mixed of this His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa, three extracts from their teachings. And then there is a transcript of the teachings by Venerable Dondrup, Australian monk, who taught this subject some years ago, and it's a transcript of his teachings from that particular teaching occasion. Venerable Dondrup, I think, is still teaching at Adelaide, I think it is, the Adelaide Centre, Buddha House, and very experienced teacher. He's probably taught the subject and discovering Buddhism for many, many, many years. Very, very good set of teachings from him there. So it's a big subject, and the more this is the second time I've taught it. I've just started teaching DB 2018. It's interesting because every subject, when I teach it the first time, I'm amazed how much I'm learning, and the second time I realise that I'm learning more, and the more I study each subject, the less I feel I know. So, or the more there is to learn. So it's that's what the Dharma's like. It's vast and profound indeed. So my knowledge is not that deep, but anyway, I think I'm definitely learning more as we go along. So hopefully you are too. Just looking at the readings, recommended readings. Of course the extracts I mentioned, the transcript. Then I've got the third one is called Following the Buddha's Footsteps, which is the collection of teachings by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, edited by Thupten Chodron and partly written by Thupten Chodron. So this is volume 5 of the series that's called The Library of Wisdom and Compassion. Sorry, holding it up there. It's volume 5. Was it 4? Volume 4. Sorry, volume 4 of the series. There's 5 volumes at the moment, and more to come. So there are 3 chapters in that volume 5 on refuge, and so His Holiness goes quite deeply into it. It's quite an advanced set of teaching. He does an good introductory approach, but then he goes quite deep. So it is, and being in volume 4 shows that His Holiness has decided that it's something that comes late after the introductory part of Buddhism comes later. So refuge is really, even though it's like an entrance to the Buddhist world, like a commitment to be Buddhas, it needs quite a lot of education, a lot of thinking and study to take the step to take refuge. So so there's that set of teachings, and then Practicing the Path by Yankxi Rinpoche. So this is the one we used mostly last year. It's more at the Discovering Buddhism level, not quite as advanced as the book by His Holiness, Practicing the Path. Very good book. I've actually got some copies here I'd love to hand out for free, because I bought them very cheaply at VI when they had a sale. So as soon as we get to have live classes, if anyone wants a copy, I'll probably have one for you. I've got quite a stack of them here. So then the other one, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands by Pabonka, which is the standard Lamrim commentary that's applicable for all of the Discovering Buddhism course, but also quite deep, remember, quite advanced. Pabonka was teaching to monks in Tibet in the early part of the 20th century. This is also sort of middle to advanced level, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. Then there are 3 other books there that Wai Chong had on the reading list when he taught the subject. One by Sharon Salzberg, Faith, Trusting in Your Own Deepest Experience. One by Thich Nhat Hanh, and one by Karen Armstrong. So I haven't had a chance to look at those myself, but if Wai Chong recommends them, I'm sure they're very good books, very helpful. So that's the reading list. There's obviously other books as well if you find them. And so let's just look at what we're going to do tonight. Basically, it's like introduction. We're looking at sort of different meanings of refuge and what's not refuge, taking refuge in things that are not going to help us. That's often called false refuge, which is quite a lot of the teachings by Lama Yeshe about taking refuge in chocolate, other things that keep us going, probably things that most of everyday Western life is about, taking refuge in material things, holidays and pleasant sights, sounds, and so on. So we'll have a look at that, that tendency, and what Buddhist refuge is by contrast. Because Buddhist refuge, these false refuges are not going to actually give us lasting help or happiness. And that's a long process to discover that. And so taking refuge is an ongoing work in progress. So the actual formal ceremony of refuge we will talk about probably in the last class. But you'll see that most of the teachings and even the textbooks, they're about the actual meaning of refuge rather than the actual ceremony of refuge. So, so there's a quote from the Bible in one of the extracts. I'm not sure where I read that, but so these are non-Buddhist meanings of refuge, and it's very helpful to look at that non-Buddhist meaning of refuge, because refuge, when I first heard the word, it's not a word that we use a lot in everyday life. We certainly hear a lot about it in terms of refugee at the moment, and that also is a type of material refuge. So the everyday meaning, we'll just look at the Bible meaning: God is our refuge and strength, and ever present help in trouble. So this is from one of the Psalms in the Bible, and so this is what His Holiness says, that, you know, even though the Buddhists don't believe in God as a creator, he acknowledges and praises Christians who have a strong faith in God and Jesus as a source of inspiration and strength, which is what being talked about there in the Psalm. So he says, you know, he admires the faith of committed Christians, and sometimes he mentions particular saints like St. Francis, and so this type of refuge is seeing a creator, a divine being, as being the source of giving strength to the disciple. That can be very useful for those who are Christians, committed Christians, and gives confidence and trust, and can actually mentally be very helpful for those Christians, people who are Christians, for their mind and their faith, and can help. The Karmapa, who I was reading one of his books just recently, he was talking about refuge. This is the Karmapa alive today, living in India, who actually went into exile from Tibet some years ago and escaped, recognized by His Holiness as being the incarnation of the Karmapa lineage. So he says, he said that refuge is symbolized a symbolic entry to the Buddhist path. But he said, so the person who's symbolically becoming Buddhist and entering the Buddhist path to enlightenment. But he said there are steps before it, and the main step is education, and learning what the meaning of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are what they call the three jewels, the three objects to which we take refuge. And he says to make taking refuge fully beneficial for somebody who's becoming Buddhist, it needs to have a full understanding of what it means to benefit our minds. And he said it's good to start with a mundane meaning of refuge, such as how children take refuge in the parents. Good example of the ordinary meaning. He also said he took refuge in the government of India as a refugee when he came from Tibet. So that's also a ordinary meaning of the word, but also we can think about refugees coming to Australia. So of course, His Holiness the Karmapa received asylum and was treated well when he got to India. He was restricted in his movements when he first got to India, and now he's allowed to move, and he's actually can travel overseas when he can, of course, before the pandemic. He has been to America and other countries. So, but this sort of refuge doesn't always succeed, and we can think of the poor refugees who ended up in Manus Island and took refuge in Australia, hoping the Australian government would treat them kindly. And unfortunately, some of them ended up worse than they were before, certainly not much better. And some of them have actually received asylum from other countries, some of them not so. So, so the ordinary meaning means to take shelter. We've got very sort of mundane example of traffic islands or refuges where you're crossing the road and you stay there until it's safe to cross. And so this is these sort of meanings of refuge are the ones very physical, but we can also expand that, particularly from the Buddhist point of view, to the mental taking of refuge, looking for something that will keep us, give us some satisfaction, some sort of that we hope will provide some sort of comfort. Anything from a Tim Tam to a nice drink, or to a good night out with friends. Some things we haven't been able to do much lately. So these sort of temporary coping mechanisms that we do when we feel we need to lift our spirits and so on. So this is the what the Buddhist teachings would say, taking refuge in the eight worldly dharmas, things that are actually things, external things that might provide some short-term benefit, some relief, but actually eventually we'll be back to the way we were, or even worse, we won't receive any long-term benefit from. So, so just think about every individual has a sort of way of coping, maybe watching TV, maybe so some people might go for drugs or alcohol, sex, or many relationships. So these sort of things would be examples of a false refuge from the Buddhist point of view, because they haven't actually provided anything that will last. And actually, as Lama Yeshe says, will make us feeling more dissatisfied. I'll just read you an extract from one of Lama Yeshe's teachings. You can find it here. This is from the materials that you've got, page 43. He says, taking refuge is the first step on the Buddhist path. This is the very first paragraph. But it's not something new. He says we've been taking refuge all our lives, mainly through external things, hoping to find security and happiness. So some take refuge in money, some in drugs, some in food, mountain climbing, or sunny beaches. Most of us seek security in a relationship with a man or woman. Throughout our lives, we've drifted from one situation to the next, always in the expectation of final satisfaction. Our successive involvements may sometimes offer temporary relief, but in sober truth, seeking refuge in physical possessions and transient pleasures merely deepens our confusion rather than ending it. So, these are what some of the textbook or teachers would call false refuges. So if we just, we've actually talked about the 8 worldly dharmas, I think, in previous modules, previous subjects. So just to refresh your memory, I've got them there. They're wanting gain and avoiding loss. It's the more formal way of looking for material things. So it could be new clothes. Money particularly is the big one in our society. In the West, status symbols, new car, better house, better physical situation, better holidays. And the opposite is not wanting to lose that. And if you've got, as you acquire wealth, wanting more, so you're not being totally satisfied and having a fear of losing it. So having to sort of shore up the wealth with insurance and taking steps to secure or try and secure our material wealth and security. So that's the first one. Next one, wanting pleasure and avoiding pain. So these are sort of more experiential refuges. So this is looking at, I think, surrounding ourselves with pleasant sights, sounds, tastes, good friends, perfect job. But this is sort of the American dream type thing, where we're having everything right, perfect partner, perfect job, and only good experiences. So it could be looking at money and material things for these good experiences, or could be looking at maybe alcohol, drugs, taking refuge there, and then avoiding unpleasant situations. Okay, so trying to, if we are sometimes using these diversions to dampen or temporarily block out unpleasant states like feeling depressed and so on, anxious, and so on. Wanting praise and avoiding criticism. So this is the I, the me, the arising sense of self. So enjoying adulation, people liking you and praising, and for those who criticize us, we avoid. We don't like to hear harsh words or critical words. So wanting praise and avoiding criticism. For the next one, wanting fame and avoiding disgrace. Similar, it's also related very much to the sense of self, wanting to build up this sense of self that when we study Buddhist teachings, we're told is actually impossible to find, even though we're sure it's there. This very substantial sense of me, and then not wanting any sort of shame or disrepute. Okay, so sometimes if we, I've given the example a lot, my personal experience of this, thinking that I always thought I was quite modest and shy, and certainly didn't like being in the limelight, but if you have an experience where somebody actually unjustly accuses you of something, say if you've done something, it's like spend money without permission, which is what happened in the body corporate situation when I was in the block of home units. I was once on the committee. So there was an occasion where I was actually accused by somebody also on the committee wrongfully of taking money. So it was then a great lesson, because my sense of how dare that person say that to me, arose quite strongly. And I was certainly very, looking back in the context of the Buddhist teaching, I didn't want criticism. I had this very strong sense of self, good reputation, and of course it was being threatened, publicly threatened, even though I knew that, I'd done nothing wrong. It was that sort of view of other people that I wanted to hold, that I want them to have a good view of me, not a bad view of me. So this is one of the 8 worldly Dharma. So if you read the stories of some of the great Buddhist saints, they abhor the idea of, they like the idea of not being liked. There was one example of Geshe Lama Konchok, the great Lama, who was very incredible meditator, and he was actually quite a very tall and quite scary looking person. Not that I saw him myself in his previous life, so the village, if he went near a village, the Tibetans, this is in Tibet, the Tibetans would tell him to go away because they didn't like the look of him. He looked like a hobo or a very sort of disreputable person, even though he was an incredibly realized being, basically a Buddha. So he had to sort of hide out in these little caves, and was often driven away by the villagers even from the caves because they didn't like the look of him. So these people, there are these stories of the high realized being not worrying at all about their reputation. In fact, sometimes preferring to have bad reputation. So, this we're told that if you read Lama Yeshe's full transcript, actually, if you're starting with the readings and you're wondering where to start, because it's 50 pages, I think the most concise extract is the one by Lama Yeshe, just called Refuge, page 43, and just there in a half a dozen pages, really terrific set of teachings, and summarizing what's the false refuge and what's the true refuge. So that's a good one. So, so the 8 worldly dharmas is what's not refuge, but actually, certainly from my point of view, and I think for most of people who are what we suppose call ordinary people, not highly realized being, that's really part of what's going on in our minds probably almost every day. And certainly I'm still very much taking refuge, even though I don't want it. I can see the disadvantage of it. My mind is still often trying to take refuge in these false refuges that are not going to help. But if we have the teachings and over a period of time, real, study, contemplate, meditate, the mind gradually changes. So my own experience of taking refuge, I went to the Kopan course in 1982, I think it was. Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa were both teaching for the whole month, incredible teaching. And then there was a formal refuge ceremony given for those who wanted it at the end. Even though I love the teachings and love both Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, I decided not to take refuge because I thought I've only just done one course in Buddhism, and I was being basically the wary type. I thought I'll just keep studying, I'll keep looking into this, and I can take refuge later. Which I don't. I kind of regret I didn't take refuge now with Lama Zopa or Lama Yeshe, but it didn't really matter because I was still, at the early stages, and I think it was probably years later that I took refuge. And I can't remember. I've taken refuge a few times with different teachers, but I can't remember the first time. But it was years after the Copan course, years of going to teachings, doing reading, thinking about things. So it's good to realise that it can be a slow process, being able to take refuge in a way that will actually be meaningful. So that's why the Karmapa says it's education is necessary before we can take refuge meaningfully, and some can be slow process. Education is always a slow process. So so just now looking at the Buddhist Refuge, the three jewels in which we take refuge are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the Karmapa puts it in really simple terms, and he says the teacher is the Buddha, the path is the teacher, is the Dharma, and friends are the Sangha. You've got the teacher, the path, and the friends. Okay, path to enlightenment is the Dharma, and the friends, the people who are with you, the giving support. So that could be, ordained friends, or it could be just people you go to the centre with, fellow Buddhists. So Lama Yeshe's got a much more sort of profound summary of it there. Buddhist refuge it's our lifelong dissatisfaction that impels us to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The Buddha is the totally open mind, the state beyond confusion. Beyond confusion, liberated forever, enlightenment. The Dharma is the path of wisdom leading to that state of mind. And the Sangha consists of those who are endowed with wisdom and can help us along the way. Okay, so another aspect. So often they use the analogy of doctor, patient, medicine and nurse. So the doctor, where the patient who needs help. The doctor is the Buddha. The medicine is the Dharma. And the nurse are those who are actually helping us take the medicine. But like all analogies, it's just an analogy, but it's quite a useful one. Okay, so just moving on. The causes. So why take refuge? So this is part of the idea of educating ourselves to want to take refuge or seeing the need. So if we just take refuge by reciting a few phrases, we don't actually really understand what we're taking refuge in or why. It's not going to have a great deal of effect on our mind. So so His Holiness says, this is extract from the book I mentioned. There are these three things. So refuge is a causative phenomenon. The idea of everything having a cause, and cause and effect, which takes us back to the previous topic of karma. So the causes and conditions, he says, are these three: fear, faith, and compassion. So fear is, as we learn about karma, we learn about the possibilities of where we can go in future lives in terms of rebirth, and where our negative karma can take us. Remember the idea of karma: positive actions will have positive results, negative suffering results. So the more we understand this, the more we'll want to go to something that will save us from the suffering results. And so this is going to, we can use the analogy, if there's a very dangerous road, we fear of being run over, so we go to the traffic island in the middle, which is will allow us to take shelter until the traffic calms down. So this is the idea of fear. The second one is faith. He says this is the core of the reason, the main reason, that the main motive for taking refuge is faith, and this involves what they call confident faith that's based on good reasons, good understanding that Buddha, Dharma, Sangha can guide us from the dangers that giving us fear. So understanding the abilities of the three jewels. So again, using the medical example, we're not well, we realize that, so we want to get better, so we choose, suppose we go to a Western medical situation, we go to the doctor, we have faith that for this particular illness, Western medicine is going to cure us. We might want antibiotics for an infection, for instance. So we need to have that idea that actually we have faith. We know about antibiotics. They do kill bacteria, not viruses, but bacteria. So for this particular illness, Western medicine is going to provide us with the best cure. So we've got faith in that body of knowledge, Western medicine. And so so the take the medicine, which is the Dharma. So faith that is based on informed knowledge, things not. There's other types of faith, inspired faith, where we may just say, hear His Holiness the Dalai Lama teaching and see him teaching to a group, and we're actually incredibly inspired. So we feel as though we can take refuge then. It's just based on this personal connection. So that would probably be inspired faith. It's not really based on a lot of knowledge. You've only just sort of met Dharma or met this great teacher. So that's not as strong as confident faith, which is what His Holiness says is having faith and confidence in the ability of the three jewels to guide us. So this is some understanding. So we understand the positive qualities of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and its characteristics. Okay, so actually, it's I think he said, I haven't got it there in the notes, but it's taking refuge in the result of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. That is, the result being we understand that it's possible to be liberated from our problems forever, and the result is enlightenment. We take result in that idea that Buddha, Dharma, Sangha will lead us to enlightenment, just like the medicine, the antibiotics. We have faith in the result that it will cure us, kill the bacteria. So the three objects. So that's the best form said to be the best form of refuge, based on this understanding of what Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are and what they can offer. So he also mentions that because this is Mahayana Buddhism, the Tibetan Buddhism, Mahayana, compassion is also an important part of taking refuge. So the person taking refuge out of the idea to be able to see that only as a fully enlightened being, or as a bodhisattva, person who's almost fully enlightened, can we actually benefit beings to the best maximum capacity. We understand people are suffering like us, all beings are suffering, not just people, but many all forms of being, and we feel compassion. So that driver of compassion, His Holiness says, is also extremely important. So faith and compassion. So Lama Zopa, in his teachings, also in the extract there, I think it's the second set of readings by Lama Zopa, so after His Holiness. So this is, he says that the compassionate mind is the starting point of of generating realizations. And the basis of morality. So morality is the decision to avoid negative actions and as much as possible create positive actions. So if you read Lama Zopa's extract there, he gives you this very graphic example of the Buddha. In a previous life before he was the Buddha, he was actually in a hell realm, in the hot hells, and he was pushing an iron cart with great suffering. He was actually in an area where people are pushing these red hot iron carts. He saw another being doing that, and he felt he wanted to actually do that for that person. He wanted to relieve that person from pushing the cart, so he actually took the cart and pushed it. And at that moment, that moment of compassion, he was released from the hell realm. That moment of compassion liberated him from having to undergo that suffering. A graphic example. So also part of it is to have some understanding of the mind's potential to become enlightened. This is understanding that the mind basically has Buddha nature. So when we're doing some of our mindfulness meditations, we use the analogy of clouds, which are the thoughts, the distractions, moments of anger, moments of attachment, and so on, as clouds in a perfectly clear sky. The sky is untouched by the clouds. Okay, the clouds pass through, but the blue sky is always there. You can, the negative aspects of our consciousness is not going to stain Buddha nature, which is the sky. So that's one great, very profound aspect of taking refuge, that you realize this is that we all have Buddha potential. So all these afflictions, these things, what we call karma and delusions, are not our essential Buddha nature. They're subject to cause and conditions. They're based on misconceptions, wrong ideas, the ignorance of how things exist. And so when we realize this, we realize it's possible to eliminate these afflictions because they have no they lack intrinsic existence, they lack any firm foundation. So this understanding, which can come slowly, will help us to take refuge with much more meaningfully. We understand we're taking refuge in our own Buddha nature. So this can sometimes called internal refuge. Okay, so we do use the external Buddha Dharma Sangha, the teachers, the teachings, and so on. But the ultimate refuge is in our realizations in our mind, that the mind has this potential to be free of all these stains and delusions. Best example is just look at some of the living teachers around, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So if we've come across, we have a guru. So there are great enlightened beings now. Sometimes we have the fortune to actually realize that they're there and see the greatness there. Good examples. So then there's just a little bit on the difference between taking refuge in what His Holiness calls the fundamental vehicle. So this is the vehicle of individual liberation, the Hinayana, or not called the lower vehicle these days, but the teachings, in the sutra vehicle, or individual liberation, where the practitioner, this is the Buddhism of Sri Lanka, Thailand, and so on. So this tradition the Buddha jewel is the historical Buddha. Okay, so it's the person who's actually lived 2,500 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha, and this person has understanding of the Four Noble Truths and has realized what we call dependent origination, the emptiness of all phenomena, and has reached nirvana, which is the end of all suffering, complete realization of all how phenomena exist. So we're taking refuge in that historical Buddha and that state of mind. That person who's achieved that state of mind of nirvana, end of all suffering. The Dharma jewel in the individual liberation vehicle is the true paths and the eightfold path of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness and concentration. So we looked at this briefly when we did our previous module on karma. So these are physical actions and mental actions that will lead to liberation. Watching our speech, watching our thoughts, our intentions, developing perfect concentration, and using that perfect concentration to realize wisdom, realizing emptiness. And that causes true cessations. And the person becomes an Arya being. The person becomes completely liberated. So the Sangha jewel is regarded as what they call stream enterers. These are beings who have actually attained great realizations. So these different levels of getting to completely liberated: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, arhat. So in those that chapter there, His Holiness actually describes the difference between each. I must admit, I got a bit bogged down, and there is these different levels of realizations for the person seeking individual liberation. But His Holiness says bodhisattvas are also included, because the individual vehicle does recognize that there are bodhisattvas. Okay, they don't reject the idea of bodhicitta and compassion being very much part of the path. So that's looking now at just comparing that to the Mahayana vehicle, which is the Tibetan Buddhist vehicle. So these beings are seeking enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. They're using compassion or bodhicitta as part of their vehicle, as against the individual vehicle who's seeking liberation for themselves. So the Mahayana practitioner is seeking liberation in order to become an enlightened being, to relieve other beings and lead other beings of their suffering and to enlighten. So the Buddha jewel in the Mahayana is they can usually describe them in two ways. The conventional is so we take refuge in all the Buddhas. So that includes the Shakyamuni Buddha from 2,500 years ago, but we also include all Buddhas who have ever existed. So the Mahayana said there were previous Buddhas before that one, and there are other beings who've followed Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings and have become enlightened since. So we take refuge in all the people who've obtained Buddha mind, following the teachings. So this, of course, there are other universes in the Mahayana teaching, so there could be Buddhas in other universes. We take refuge in all of them. So the ultimate Buddha jewel for the Mahayanist is the refuge in the Buddha bodies. So the main one, there's two really. There's the Dhammakaya, which is the mind of enlightenment with no physical form, and the Nirmanakaya is the physical form that ordinary beings can see, that enlightened beings take this physical form in order so they can be seen by ordinary being. Could be in the form of a monk giving teaching, could be in the form of inanimate objects where they might be needed, food, bridges, water, or any sort of manifestation that will benefit beings. So that's the ultimate Buddha jewel, taking refuge in those forms of enlightenment, the bodies of enlightenment, and the knowledge that they represent. The Dharma jewel is the scriptures. That's the same as the scriptures that will include the sutras, but also all the teachings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that have been given, not just the Shakyamuni Buddha teachings, but beings who've become enlightened, like the Lama Tsongkhapa has actually manifested Buddhahood and given incredible teachings since the historical Shakyamuni Buddha. So those words, of course, Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings form the basis of the Gelugpa tradition. And those teachings from Lama Tsongkhapa are based on Buddha's original teachings as well, but in a different arrangement. So the ultimate Dharma jewel is the realizations of true cessations and true paths in the mind stream of Aras, so the actual mind of those beings who are studying the Dharma. Okay, the Dharma jewel of the realization. So that in terms of ourselves, our Dharma jewel, we look at the teaching, and then we have realizations if we're fortunate and successful in our practice, in our meditation and study. So that's the Dharma jewel. The Sangha jewel are formally any 4 ordained people, a Sangha. So if you have 4 ordained monks or nuns, then that is said to be Sangha. And the ultimate Sangha jewel is anyone who has realized true cessations of suffering and true paths in their mind stream. So that person who's become an enlightened being. So so that's another way of looking. I'm just looking at the time because we're going to do, I think it's good to do at least one meditation if we can. So it's not just all chit-chat or my monologue. Can be too much after an hour. So we're going to do appreciating the human life as a meditation. So before that, just look at cause and resultant refuge. So this is quite a helpful way of looking at these, another way of dividing up different forms of refuge. The causal refuge is anything that causes us to develop realizations in our mind. So Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, taking refuge in anything that's not ourselves. So Shakyamuni Buddha, we could take refuge in, say, our guru, if we find a teacher that we connect with. So someone who's we trust to embody the teachings and who's realized the teaching. We take refuge in the texts that they're using, or the teachings that have been used by these inspiring beings, our teachers, teachers who we're following and have faith in. So the Dharma is actually the way that we're going to transform our mind. The actual guru or the teacher will give teachings, and those teachings themselves are the ones that is the path to our own realizations. Okay, so the teacher just can't sort of transplant his realizations from his mind into the student's mind. So we knew that the Dharma is this method, the means. So, and then of course the Sangha, those who support us. So it could be ordained people who are helping us to learn the Dharma, teachers at the center, our fellow Buddhist practitioners who are giving us support, encouraging us, very important, this collegiate group who have like-minded. So that can be Sangha. They don't have to be ordained. They're people who we meet at the centre, who help maybe attend teachings with, maybe discuss the teachings with, maybe attend retreats with, and so on. So these can also help. So this is the causal refuge, and the resultant refuge is our own future. Like, we take resultant refuge in what we want to be, which is an enlightened being, the fruits of the practice. Take refuge in our. This is sometimes getting into the area of tantra, where we want to have the realizations of a Buddha mind, of an enlightened being, and so we use that as our goal, full enlightenment, resultant refuge. Resultant refuge is the result of our practice. Okay, so that's can be quite useful. Those two different types. We need causal refuge to achieve resultant refuge, and we need causal refuge in a perfect objective refuge. Okay, that's enough, I think, for just going through those topics. Then next week we'll look at the 8 excellent qualities of the Buddha jewel. So we've got just going to look more deeply into what it means to take refuge in the Buddha. And so there are these different qualities that we need to sort of understand what Buddhahood is, to help us understand what the result is of our refuge. So, okay, just looking at any comments there. So, so the practice on appreciating our human life, it's good. It leads into the idea of refuge, because when we do the practice of appreciating our human life, we look at what a good position we're in, how amazing it is to have the human body, and how rare it is, and what the human body can do for us. It can actually transport us to Buddhahood if we practice well. And how much better it is than being, say, an animal, another form of being. But we also look beyond that at our situation where we are, that we have access to the teachings. So we're looking at what's available. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Here we actually have all the Dharma, all the teachings have come to the West in the last 50 or so years, because Tibet, the great teachers of Tibet, including the holiest, the Dalai Lama, had to leave Tibet because of the Chinese invasion. And so the beneficiaries of that are particularly the Westerners, where many of the Tibetan teachers have actually focused their teachings. So we also have now more and more Dharma. We have translated Dharma, all the scriptures, the sutras, and commentaries, translated into just about every language where there is a need. We have centers with qualified teachers. We have, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, great beings who are actually masters and actually interested in teaching and are teaching students like us. We have time, leisure time, and we have interest in connecting, some sort of connection with the Dharma. So this is just helping to help with the idea of refuge. We see that actually all the objects of refuge are here, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and what important having the opportunity to take advantage of that, to use the time that we have to study the Dharma. Incredible opportunity, This is the complete path to enlightenment. But remember that the Dharma teachings, Mahayana Dharma teaching, offer to completely lead the students out of suffering to enlightenment with no way back. So, okay, so let's do the practice. We've got maybe 10, 15 minutes or so, and basically we're looking at our situation as a human being, and where, not only as a human body, but where we are and what's available, and also the fact that we have an interest in the Dharma and the Dharma is available. And so the conclusion is, why not make use of this situation, which could end at any time? Remember, this human body is very fragile. We don't know how long we're going to live. We know we are going to die at some stage. We don't know exactly when. And the only thing that's going to help us at the time of death is our mental state, our mental practice, our mental progress, realization. Okay, so let's get comfortable. Comfortable position, sitting, lying down, on a chair, on a cushion, whatever's the most comfortable. So we'll just spend a few moments getting the mind settled by focusing on the breath, the movement of the body with the breath. One breath at a time. So we begin our contemplation on appreciating the human life we have, sometimes called a precious human rebirth, by starting with the body. We have a human body with a human brain. Human body with a human brain has incredible potential. We're physically healthy. We have our mental faculties, senses. With this human body, human brain, we can create causes of enlightenment. We can progress our spiritual development, our mind. We can take care of our mind, cultivate our mind. Compare it with animals who don't have much intelligence, can't understand even one word of Dharma. Often, animal realm, there's great fear, being eaten by other beings, other animals, suffering hot and cold. Think of the animal realm in the sea, fish, each fish eating bigger, smaller fish. We can also think about other realms of suffering, such as the lower realms, hungry ghost realms, hot realms, cold realms. We are not born there. We have a human body. The human body is a possible vehicle to develop the mind. In fact, only with a human body can we reach liberation and enlightenment. So not only do we have this human body, but we're actually born in a country, a place that is safe. There's no civil wars, no major political instability. Human rights are largely respected. We can practice whatever religion we like. Very few natural disasters, famines, earthquakes, floods, fires. We have access to medical care, enough food, shelter. We can think of other places which don't have these facilities. Not only do we have this human body, but we're in a very auspicious place, our location, our environment. But we have also the teachings of Buddha here available, the Dharma. We have teachings in language we understand. We have teachings in various forms, multimedia, digital, hard copy. Many, many major texts and commentaries are now available, translated, just in the last one generation, two generations. The Dharma has come to the West, come to this country, this place, where we are living. Not only that, we have teachers who are qualified, ordained practitioners, monks and nuns, who've devoted their life to study, Geshes who studied for 20 or 30 years to obtain their degrees. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, incredible enlightened being, spreading the teachings, giving teachings, accessible to large numbers of beings. We have centres, Buddhist centres where we can attend, hear the teachings, do practices, meditate, attend retreats, hear great teachers, meet fellow practitioners, Sangha, fellow Buddhists. So we have this, the Dharma and the Sangha in these centres available. Not only that, we have some leisure time. We don't have to spend our entire lives working just to stay alive. We have some time where we can actually study, practice, meditate, attend teachings, the Dharma, study the Dharma. We can cultivate our understanding of the Buddhist teachings. We can use our human brain to improve our mental qualities, develop compassion, wisdom. Purify our negativities. So we not only have this opportunity, but we have an interest in the Dharma. We can see beyond materialism, the false refuges, money, short-term pleasures, and see some value in the teaching, some value. This must have come from previous lives where we've also studied Dharma, created positive imprints on our mind. So with these incredibly rare conditions all coming together, we can rejoice and make a decision to use this opportunity, knowing that the human body is frail. We could lose our life at any moment. There's no guarantee how long we live. These good conditions could end at any time. So we need to appreciate that Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are available objects of refuge, perfect objects of refuge, infallible objects. By educating our mind, we can take a meaningful approach to refuge and accept that these are precious jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And we also have Buddha potential. It enables us, if we do the practices, do the study, commit to the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, we can travel the path to full enlightenment, liberation, full enlightenment, and be of greatest benefit to all other beings, lead other beings to enlightenment. So we'll just dedicate now any positive merit that positive imprints on our minds from what we've done, what we've studied today, tonight, and all the study and merit we've accumulated in the past and will do in the future. This is the dedication that Lama Zopa's recommended for the pandemic, the coronavirus. He says, however many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be free from all sickness. May all sickness, without exception, of all transmigrating beings never occur again. Due to the merits of the 3 times collected by me, by all the numberless Buddhas, numberless sentient beings, may all wars or sickness, famine, torture, poverty, and economic problems in the world, and all dangers of earth, water, fire, and wind be pacified immediately, and may perfect peace and happiness prevail in everyone's hearts and lives. May the Buddha Dharma last for a long time, and may the sentient beings in this world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible, dedicating to that. Okay, so that's the teaching for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, got something from it. Hope to see you next week. Have a good week, good night and a good week, and see you same time next week for the second lot of teachings on this great subject, Refuge and the Three Jewels. Okay, see you soon.